All right, so this is how to make a Gantt chart, and it's pretty straightforward. We talked a little bit about the waterfall method, and one of the things you do during the waterfall method is you come up with the different steps that you're going to take in order to complete the project. So let's come up with something that we want to make. We kind of went with the Pac-Man idea here in our other talk, so why don't we just sort of build on that. So what steps do we need to do in order to complete this? Usually we have something called a start of the project, and that has a special significance. This is called a milestone, and what I did was I just clicked in this first thing here, and then it filled the rest of this in for me. So you can kind of see what's happening here. You're going to make this big long task list, and it's going to map out the time that you're going to spend over here, and that's what the Gantt chart is. It's a planning tool that lets you see where all the phases start and end. And that's how it helps you figure out how much something is going to cost and how long it's going to take. You also have this cost field here, and we can assign resources and things like that, so you can figure out how long things are going to take and how much they're going to cost. So when you start a project, that's kind of a special step, and that's called a milestone, and we have a checkbox for it here. So I'll check that. And basically what that means is it has a 0 length duration. I know it says 1 day there. We can make that 0. I think we can make it 0. Nope, you can't. You can in project. It'll make it 0 in project, and that's when it makes it a day. But it turns it into a black diamond. So that's your hint that that's a milestone. All right, so these are different things that will happen throughout the project. The obvious milestones are the start and the finish. So if we're going to do this waterfall thing, what we would do is we would start with the planning phase. I can type that in there. There we go. And then you just figure out how long that's going to take. So let's say we're going to allocate 5 days to this. So we're going to come up with everything. Now remember, we're going hybrid here. We're not doing a full-on waterfall method because we decided that was bad. It takes too long. So we'll do this sort of abbreviated form of it. And we'll do the planning phase. And again, it'll take 5 days. And I can adjust this if I want to. I can usually slide this back and forth. And that will change the length. So you can see it's now 6.5 days. So that's just kind of a nice little thing that you put in there. So I'm going to change it back to 5. So that we have that. And we'll go ahead and put the coding phase in here. And on the coding phase, I'm not going to set a length. I'm going to set smaller tasks. So let's come up with a few ideas for user stories. We had one right off the bat, which was, I'll call it start game. And I don't write all of this out in here. I would write this out somewhere else. We mentioned cards, something along those lines. But what I can do here is I can click this arrow and it'll indent it. And so what that means is this is sort of going to be a roll up. So whatever I put in here is going to get rolled up. So I can put, I think I can hit enter here, and it'll just go down to the next one. But if not, I can just hit tab, and that's fine. All right, so navigation, that's going to be the joystick thing. Eating dots. We'll have, what were the ghosts' names? Inky. Inky's movement. Because if I were making ghosts, I'd make the first one, and then I would figure out how to just change it, right? So that it would do the rest of them. So Inky's movement, he was the first ghost, and then we'll implement Pinky, and what was the other one? Clyde was one of them. There was one that wasn't an Inky. Inky, Pinky, I don't know what it is. I'll just call him Stinky. All right, so those are those different ghosts that are in there. And what else would we need? We have cutscenes every second or third maze. So we need to do different mazes. So we'll just say that there are 5 mazes, so we don't have to type a whole bunch of in. So we'll do maze 1, maze 2, maze 3, and maze 4, and maze 5. Okay, and then we'll have 2 cutscenes. And then we'll move into the testing phase. But that's not part of the coding phase, right? So I need to move it back out. All right, and then we'll have a gold master. We'll assume we're going to ship this on a CD or DVD. We'll have a final QA phase. We're going to have, actually, we need another phase in here, don't we? I'll just change this one. I'll change it to discrepancy resolution, which is a nice way of saying we're going to fix all the bugs that we found in the testing phase. And then we'll have final QA is fine, and then we'll have gold master. And then we'll do release. And the release is going to be another milestone, so I'll make that a milestone. And now that I know what all my phases are, I can come through and start guessing how long, because it really is most of the time a guess, how long most of these things are going to take. So I'll just set some random, sort of semi-random values in here. So I'll say that's 3 days, and I'll say navigation is 5 days, which I guess would be like the easiest thing in there, but I'm just going to put stuff in here so we have stuff in here. 8 days for that, and you can see what's happening. We've got these bars growing out. So we'll spend 3 days on the first one and hopefully 1 day on all the rest of them, and then our mazes are going to be 4 days apiece. And in Project, there's a little bit nicer tool in here where you can set a whole bunch of them at the same time. But this is free, so we're not going to gripe. Plus, I am not a project manager, so I am not an expert at project management software. But I know enough that I can come in here and make a plan. So that's what I'm trying to pass on to you guys. Okay, cutscene 1, we'll give that a full 5 days. That's a whole work week. Testing phase, we'll give it a full 10 days. That's 2 weeks. DR, you only get 5 days to fix all your bugs. And final QA should take 3 days at most because you fixed everything. And I'll just leave Gold Master at a day because it doesn't really take a day to burn a disk, right? All right, so now we've got all of these in here. We need to figure out something called the critical path. The critical path is how all of these relate to each other. So we only have, let's pretend it's just one person on the team. It's a lone wolf operation. And so what you do is you need to connect all of these up in such a way that will let you know what depends on what. All right, so before anything can start, we have to log, or we have to set the original milestone. So the first task, the first real task is the planning phase. And I'm going to go ahead and link that. I'm just going to drag and drop one to the other. All right, so that milestone, this is telling us that you can't start this until you've completed this one. And then I'm just going to do the same thing for some of these other ones so you can see how this works. So here I'm saying we can't start the coding or the start game function until the planning phase is over. And then again, since it's one person, we can just sort of do it this way and link all of these up. Now, it's possible that maybe I'll go get some help, right? So I've got Inky, and once I've got Inky figured out, I can get someone to help me do the other ones. Maybe I'll task it out or job it out to somebody. So what I can do here is I get a couple people to work on it for a couple hours. I'm going to fix this so that they're not dependent on each other. So these 3 tasks can happen at the same time, but they can't start until this one is finished. So hopefully that makes sense. In this case, I've made the prototype and then I've passed it off to 2 other people who are just going to take what I did here and fix it so that it's almost the same thing with just small variations. Okay, so that's pretty much how this works, and it's pretty straightforward. I probably don't need to draw all these lines, but I will anyway. So we'll get to the end of this thing. And when I start getting too scrolly, what I'll sometimes do is start going backwards. Except that's the wrong thing, isn't it? That's not what we want. I should have gone the other way. And I can't undo it. That's no good. All right. That'd be the downside of using free software, right? Yeah, usually in Project was what I would usually use. You can usually double click this and see what the dependencies are, and you can adjust them, but I don't see that in here. So I don't see it. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. Maybe I can, oh, that just moves it out. That's not what I want.
Well, you did say that this was the older version.
Yeah, it might be that. But you'd think that's for the whole project. Well, I can delete the task. Go resources. We don't have resources defined yet, so that's not helping. Details, progress. There really should have been a window in here that lets me do dependencies. Okay, I'll have to get rid of them and put them back in. All right. So I should have done this. I should have gone top down instead of bottom up. Okay, there we go. Now, I've got all these linked up. I can tell what my ship date is. My release date is 5/20/2016, assuming that I start on 2/18 or 2/19. Really, this should be 0, but it wouldn't let me do that. Let me try it again, see if it'll let me do 0. Because most of the time, that is the definition of a milestone is 0 days, but it won't let me do that. Okay, that's all right. All right, so pretty straightforward, right? And then the other thing that you can do if you have lots of people on your project, you can come in here and add resources. So these are people, machines, anything that might be used on the project. So that's, you can define that in there, and then you can define how much they cost and how much they're able to work on the project. So maybe you've got people that are split on several different projects. You can account for that. Although I think if you're getting into that level of detail, you should probably go buy the professional tool. And there are also online tools. This is not like Project is the only thing out there. There are other project tools out there, but Microsoft Project is probably the most widely used. It's kind of like Word. You know, you really can't get away from Word. And Project is kind of the same way. So this is pretty much it in a nutshell. And if I'd gone through and defined costs, then it would figure out how much the project was going to cost. So you can go by hour, fixed price, any of those kinds of things can be added in here. And then the other thing that you can do that's handy is you can export this to a PDF, you can export it to Word, or you can export it to Microsoft Excel, and then you've got all of your data, and you can fiddle around with it in other Office tools if you need to. So if you need to write up a report for your boss or your investors, probably export to PDF is going to be your best bet. That's going to spit out something that you can email. And, oh, interesting. Again, that's one of the problems with free tools, right? Ironic, because I actually have Adobe PDF printer installed on this thing. But okay, that's fine. So that's pretty much it. So what I suggest that you do in order to learn how to do this stuff is create a project plan for what you want to do this semester. So we have all of these projects in Blackboard. And I've told you you can pretty much pick which ones you want to do. So we have tests, and we have writing assignments, and so on. So it would be a pretty simple thing to come into this tool or one like it. I'll save this. And then we can figure out how long things are going to take and when you're going to have them due by. So this is sort of something you could do to help figure out how you're going to pass the class. I shouldn't say pass, I should say ace the class, right? You're all going to ace the class. You're not just going to get by, you're going to kill it. So you could come in here and you could say, I'm going to take exam 1, exam 2, exam 3. If it were me, I'd take all the exams because those are pretty straightforward and easy to get points on. And they're self-grading, so that's kind of nice. I think there are 8 or 9. I'll just put 9 in here. And then I'm going to do the writing assignments because those are pretty easy. So I'll write the patterns paper. And when does that fire? And what else do we have? I'll pick a couple of these. I'll do Die Roller, and I'll do Temple of Doom because that's a fun one. Die Roller, Temple of Doom. And I guess if I really wanted to, I could go put the point values over here in cost, and I could see when I would hit 100,000 points, right? Or 90,000 points. All right, so how long is it going to take to do each of these? Probably a day for all of them, but Temple of Doom and Die Roller might take a little longer, so I'll give myself some time on that one, and I'll give myself some time on that one. And we'll just say that we have to do these in order. You kind of do. At very least, you have to watch the videos in order, right? Since they build on one another. And you'll note that it's taking weekends into account. That's what these blue areas are here. That's why it's moving so far over. And look at that. I'm going to finish the whole course in like 2 weeks. Awesome. All right, so I probably need to do some more than that, but I can now tell we'll make that a milestone. And really, if you wanted to go all out, you could make all of these. You could drag all of these down to that milestone, but I think that's extreme. Yeah, 323. So I could, if I did all this in a day and I did one thing every day, then 323 is my end date. So that is a Gantt chart. And let me save this. So I got example 2. And this is what you use to do project plans. So when you bust this out in your project dev class, Mr. Kura will be totally stoked that you already know how to make Gantt charts. And you can tell him I sent you.